Callaway's new and improved Chrome Soft family of golf balls is better for everyone. From amateurs to major winners like John Rahm, Phil Mickelson and Annika Sorenstam. The new Chrome Soft delivers Callaway's highest quality, best performing and most consistent golf balls. Learn more at callawaygolf.com.au.
Hello and welcome to episode 62 of The Thing About Golf, Golf Australia magazine's ongoing search for the answer to that eternal question, just what is it about this crazy game? Rod Morri's my name, and on this episode we're going to meet a golfer who's almost universally considered one of the Australian game's good blokes. Vaughan Somers played golf in an era where the money and driving distance were a whole lot less, but in so many ways the golf and the players were so much more. Between 1977 and 1988, Vaughan played 149 tournaments on the European Tour and countless more here in Australia. He's best remembered for winning a Gold Coast unit when he had a hole-in-one at the Tooth's Tweed Heads Golf Tournament in 1981. At the time, it was golf's richest hole-in-one prize, and it immediately attracted the attention not only of the world's media, but also the Australian taxman. But Somers is so much more than that one shot. At 70, he still exudes the energy of a 30-year-old, and he remains a highly regarded coach. From playing multiple practice rounds with Seve to hours spent in the company of the legendary Dave Mercer, there's more than one nugget for the attentive golfer to glean from this chat. You'll find Somers at the MGA driving range in Melbourne most days, and if he's not there, it's probably because he's playing golf. Thankfully, he found some time to sit down with us for this chat, which I hope that you enjoy as much as I did. Well, Vaughan Somers, the first thing we have to do, as we always do, is say thank you. The thing about golf is quite the commitment because it takes a lot of time to do, but I'm really looking forward to having a chat with you today. Thanks for taking some time.
It's a pleasure.
I don't know you nearly as well as I should, so I went to Wikipedia. I looked up Vaughan Somers. Let's see if we can confirm or deny everything that it says here. Status professional, former tourist, PGA of Australasia, European Tour, correct?
Correct.
Professional wins 5?
Yes.
4 on the PGA Tour of Australasia, 1 on other.
Yeah.
Masters, PGA US Open didn't play. The Open Championship tied 21st best finish in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you what you remember about that week shortly. Born in Queensland?
Yes, yeah, Queensland born and bred.
I was a bit iffy about this. Somers had modest success as a professional golfer, winning the 1975 North Coast Open and the 1985 Ford Dealers South Australian Open. I suppose we grade these things on a scale, Vaughan, but anybody who's made a living playing golf is more than a modest success, whether they've won or not, are they not?
Yeah, I would say that was sad to read, a modest success, because it was difficult to make a living because of the size of the money in those days compared to the cost of the travel and the distances you did have to travel. Obviously, everyone that's a sportsman in any sport in Australia has had to go overseas to try and improve his standard and also to make any sort of interesting money. So you by going overseas, you invested a lot, and it's the purest form of commercialism, paid on performance. If every job and in every aspect of life is paid on performance, the world would be a much better place.
What's the thing about golf for Vaughan Somers? Is there the thing about golf for you, or is it a multifaceted interest?
Oh, it's difficult to say because I just put golf as a package. I'm sort of a weird deep thinker. I think of the inspirational things late in life or as I was going along, I keep them to myself. But, golf as a package was always the thing. If it was me, I was interested in me. Can I win? Can I just beat the course today? Now I'm 70, but my body hasn't let me down yet, thankfully. And my mind definitely is 30. And it's trying to make my body do what it did when it's 30, and that's the upsetting, sad thing. But I would say that's about everyone that's still fit and getting old, breaks their heart. The enjoyment now, I get so much pleasure out of making people say that that's the best I've ever played, or no one's ever given me that tip before, or still playing with my guests or even my staff here at MGA. They're all very accomplished golfers because we hire them for that reason, or they come to us for that reason, and they're quite proud of seeing me hit a very good shot still, you know. I'm young at heart, and I play with them, and they include me in their groups and everything, which is unusual for the big gap in the age group, but I try to stay at their level of you know, interest and entertainment, and they're quite proud of me when I do things that showed them what I used to be able to do when I was younger.
We'll probably come back to this name a bit later on, but Mike Clayton, a couple of years ago, I was doing a podcast with him, and I think he just turned 63, and he said the same thing, he feels 30. And I asked him about it at the time, and it dawned on me since. How much of that physically still being in good nick as you are at 70, do you reckon, is to do with the amount of walking you've done with golf and the physical movement of playing the game regularly?
There's absolutely no question. If you think of how many golfers that are still old, when the famous golfers, they didn't, you know, and they didn't look after themselves. Like, I never smoked. I hated it with a passion, but a lot did. I think that's a big thing. You know, it shortens your life. There's no question about that.
Save you from that.
The outdoor life, the fun of it, just everything about what the atmosphere at the top level of golf, I don't know, the good food you ate because you're a bit better, you know, you're financially able to eat well and live well. I'm sure that it extended their lives. Most of them lived to their 70s and 80s. You're hearing all the time, you know, it's like my old coach, Dave Mercer, 93, you know, said it's just out in the sun, and there's no question that golf had that on them. And in the modern era, it'll probably be even more so because they're, you know, they've got dietitians and nutritionalists and gyms and everything now.
Although it's a much more violent action, the modern swing, for a lot of the top players that we see. And what impact might we've seen? Jason Day's had a lot of injuries, and I'm not sure he's an outlier. What do you think?
Well, I think, you know,
they swing it faster, they swing it harder, they build their bodies for it, but
there's no question about that. They do, but it's still something they practice all the time. And I think, I just think gyms have caused more problems than they. You know, I can still jump out on a good day here if I haven't had too bad a day at work and play in the afternoon. If I keep my rhythm early and ease into it, I think, you know, just footballers amaze me as well. You know, they're always injured. They're always crook. You know, but they're always doing these stress tests and lifting the most weights they can do and everything. They forget about running fast and being loose and letting the long muscles do things. And that, you know, like when Tiger, he got very muscle bound. You know, I'll defend it to the grave that his body shape changed twice. He went from lean and long to muscly and tough, and then he's gone back to almost lean and long and looks better. It was a sad thing. And some of those changes in your body, if you learn your swing at a certain shape, there's an absolute history of blokes that, you know, most of the amateur golfers wouldn't have heard of, that we know of, that have never got heard of again by getting fit or losing a lot of weight. And you learn your certain swing in a certain shape, but to lose that weight too, they get so cranky. You know, I've got jockeys who are best friends, and when they have to ride at 49, they're usually 53. It's like cutting off a leg, and it takes 2 or 3 weeks. A bigger man at golf, when he's taken off, he's grumpy. He's grumpy with his wife, so she's not happy at home. You know, he's grumpy with his game when at least little thing's wrong. I find that they're least able to accept adversity when they're taking off the weight.
How important is away from the course for on-course performance for good players, for pros?
Oh, I think you play a game as you live your life. There was a thing on Victoria Park where I did my apprenticeship in Brisbane, and you climbed up this hill to the 10th tee. It was like 180 feet straight up a hill from the 9th green. And it had a sign up there, you play your game. And I remember that since I was 17 years old. If you're happy in anything, you know, businessman's happy. I mean, it goes without saying, particularly at golf, because there's a litany of this. Again, you ask some good questions. A lot of the young blokes get married on a high and bring them onto the tour at a high level, and the wives are getting fussed. They're making the cut every week, and the wives that get looked after because the husband's making the cut every week get the shopping trips and the tourist thing and the helicopter flights. And then you start missing 4 or 5 cuts in a row, and those wives are going there, and your wife's getting on the plane with you on the Saturday to go to the next tournament. Talk about divisive. It's very divisive. And, you know, the best wife in the world has got to really toughen up to help her husband through that. And, you know, both don't want to be dragging yourselves down together. And I find that I always looked at that because I was single all my life on the tour. I didn't get married until I retired, because just for that reason, it was a hard life for wives. When there wasn't a lot of money, they weren't coming home every week on a luxury flight, and that sort of thing to see the wives and kids. So there was periods where they're a long time away. I love the laugh at these footballers, and they say they've got to go away for 5 weeks in a bubble, and they're at Coolangatta in a beautiful hotel with a golf course and the surf and everything like that. We were away for 7 months and 8 months and 9 months.
Sharing rooms with other blokes.
Yeah, well.
Who snored and bloody carried on. And the game's changed. Are we grumpy old men, Vaughan?
Talking about it changing? No, I don't think so. I think history shows that I've said that, except for DeChambeau hitting it hard and hopefully not changing the game too much. But, until he came along, they hit it hard, but they did the classic swing. I keep going back to the classic swing. You still have to transfer your weight. He does. And it just, he's in it so far that they just want to get within 100 metres of green and try and get it up and down now. They don't care if they're in the rough or the trees or depending on what courses they play at different times of the year, there'll be a course that suits your game, hitting at 350 and don't care whether you're in the bush.
One of them was a US Open course last year for him.
Well, look at the Ryder Cup when they went to France and they grew the rough long. The Americans were I was loving it. I was just loving it because if you didn't hit it on the fairway, you couldn't play, and that was fantastic. That's the way it's supposed to be. Get back to hitting a 260 in the fairway and putting a prize on it.
We might come back to it. There's a philosophical discussion about golf courses and their role in the game. There seems to be two types of golfers. There's those of us who think that the golf course is what makes the game the most interesting and that the game is about golf courses, and there are those who think that golf is about the players, about golfers. Would you agree with that as a proposition? The two types, just to start with, two types of people?
I would partially, but I think I would downgrade the people that think golf about the courses. I love it's a scene for it, but if they play the British Open down the Centre Dandenong Road out here, the winner's going to win.
It'd be innovative. We'd all love to be there for that.
But the winner's going to win.
Yes, of course.
The worst course I used to laugh about blokes saying, the greens are terrible this week. Well, they're terrible for the winner.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they're terrible for the bloke that makes the cut. Just do your best. They're slow this week. Hit them harder. They're fast this week. Hit them softer. But just play the game, but that's why I think there's two divisions. I think even at a 20 handicap level, the competitiveness still overrides the beauty.
So I've had this discussion with others. So Beth Page Black PGA a couple of years ago, the Brooks Koepka one, and was it not Beth Page, the one in Atlanta, and Tiger chased him all the way home there 3 years ago, 2018. Adam Scott was in the mix.
Yeah,
not a particularly good or interesting golf course, fantastically interesting tournament. People say, well, what does it matter?
No one notices.
But doesn't golf put its best foot forward when both of those ingredients? Wouldn't that have been an even more compelling tournament at the Old Course or Augusta or Royal Melbourne because the golf course is involved as a player as opposed to just being a stage for the players to perform on? I probably haven't put that very eloquently, but do you know what I'm saying?
I do, but it depends on how they present it as a commentator. It's still the whole that's coming up by the competitors. It's how they intend to plan the hole and play the hole and handle it under pressure. And, when they're looking at it, they're saying, is Tiger going to get nervous, or is Greg Norman going to get nervous in this battle, or is Brooks going to get, who cracks first? And it's all about nerves. That's all it is. Don't worry about that. The only reason people swing changes from the perfect one they do in the practice fairway is nerves. The C grader coming up the last hole at Burleigh Heads, where I used to be the pro, or Kingston Heath or Capital Golf Club, he's got as much pressure on him in his mind as Jack Nicklaus has coming up there, and they say that's ridiculous, Jack Nicklaus. But Jack Nicklaus is built to cope with the British Open 18th hole. The boss of CSL coming up the last hole of Burleigh playing for the C Grade Championship, he isn't. That's as high as he can aspire to. So when that's it, he is experiencing, that's why they don't perform as well. But the guy that wins the C grade is performing as well as Jack Nicklaus because he's nervous, but he's still doing his job. He's the best C grader with all the pressure. Jack's the best pro with all the pressure.
Are you born with that, or do you learn that, Vaughan? Can you teach that? Or more importantly, can you learn it? Some things can't be taught, but they
can learn it a little bit, but it is a gift. It's born, and I can identify it.
Is it a personality trait?
Yeah, but that's you're born with that.
Yeah.
And you can change your personality or you can hide it a bit. And that's the other fallacy. You know, golf doesn't build, you know, everyone says, Dave Mercer's famous saying was, it was his. And he used to say to me, he said, son, golf doesn't build personality. It identifies.
That's right.
And the kids do that. But I can identify the guys that are going to, not always the bad ones, but I can tell when they're going to be good. And we always used to watch. Later, when I finished playing, I used to watch the golf with David, and he would say, you know, we used to discuss. I said, how are we going to pick with this? I like this bloke, and he didn't like him, and he liked that bloke, and I didn't. Or we like these people, you know, together. And he'd said, son, you just see if they can complete their backswing the first time they come under pressure. Because they get short and they get quick when they're nervous. And they still do. I talk to the kids about it now, and they really enjoy that, and it really helps them get through that business. The biggest thing you can do somehow, when you, as I used to say, when your bum's puckering, when you're nervous, and that's all it is. Don't kid yourself. It's all about the nerves. It's how you handle it. It's being proud of being nervous and still doing the job, whether it's any sport or any business thing or anything.
Most of us, and I know I'm one, under that kind of pressure, I fold up like a cheap deck chair. But some embrace it. Jordan was famous. Give me the ball. Give me the chance to fail. I suspect most who play the game for a living like yourself have that attitude.
I was definitely like that. I never got afraid because I could never understand why you practiced all your life to get there. Yeah. And when you got there, you
gave up.
You folded. You know,
lay down.
It was just so obvious. As I said, I go back to any kids I teach or try and help. You know, I said to them, everyone's nervous. I can't say to you don't get nervous because you are. But I said, just be there because there's no sense. Did we get up at 5 o'clock the other morning to do the practice? And they'd say, yeah. Well, I said, well, this is what it was for. Yeah. This is why you got to justify it to yourself. And that takes the nerves away. And there is a case for how you do it the very first time too. Uh-huh. You can have a bit of luck in your life. If, you know, Gary Player used to be able, you know, if he took 7 up the bloody other bloke took 8, you know. If he had a 10, the other bloke would have an 11. You can have a little bit of luck. You know, I'm not saying he was lucky. No. But he had some preposterous wins when things weren't going good. And if it happens enough times, you actually think you're invincible and you'll get through most of them, you know, and then they forgive you the ones where you fail because you know, 7 out of 10, you were successful, or 6 or 7 out of 10. They forget the others then because they think, oh, well, they only remember good thing about golf. They only remember the good things about you. And, that's what does it. So if you have a bad experience the first time, it's a big, long way back from that. If you have a bad experience the first couple of times, it gets bigger and bigger again. It's compound interest either way. Yeah. I guarantee you, except for exceptional circumstances late in the year, where you might, I had it one year in Europe where I needed a check to stay exempt, and it was the hardest thing you've ever seen in your life. I was playing like this absolute, you know, just trying too hard to get it done, you know, and I was getting worse and not better. But there's those sort of circumstances you think, but there's not one situation where I'd be amazed. I would hate a pro to own up to it, stood over it and said, I've got to hit this shot to win $27,642 more if I get this shot in. Your pride is to have one shot better against the course and against your fellow competitor. A good pro will do anything to have one less.
The player who thinks about money doesn't get there, do they? That's the truth. If you're wired to think that way, you're not going to get as far enough to ever test yourself. It's not going to happen.
No chance.
Let's talk about the tour. You played the tour in what many believe to be a bit of a golden era. Tell me firstly what it was like when you played.
It was fun. It was fantastic, exciting.
Would a modern player say that, do you reckon? If I asked one of the Hogarth twins who are 19 and 20, what's it like playing the tour, would they say it's fun?
No. It's just a joy. It's mechanical. It's, you know, TrackMan screening. I've got to get up at this hour. I've got to do that. I've got to do 4 hours this. And no.
What time did you get up? What time did you see your nutritionist?
As early as I could, you know. We get a free lift of the course instead of having to pay the taxi fare. You know, we'd be all together. You know, they used to because of the cost. You know, even in Europe, there was 2 travel companies and they competed against each other. But the tour went with 2 travel. So you went with the blokes you loved or hated. You know, it was all the English were very jealous of the South Africans and the Australians. South Africans and Australians, Southern Hemisphere. See, we went to their country, so they got the best of us best Australians when they're the best. So we were beating them and competing with them, and they're getting beat up by foreign players, and we were a bit brash. We were, Aussies and South Africans never backward and come forward, but it was fun, and there was two camps. There was definitely two camps, and then there was Europe and America at the time were at war, because Seve was jealous of the fuss. The era of Seve was the thing that changed Europe. There's no question about that, and then foreign players being number one in America changed it. Then they had to look out like a Norman and then Langer and Seve and Faldo and that. Again, Jack Newton did it in Australia for us, not as America, but he kept saying they're not better than us. We used to go to Europe because everyone said, America's too good. It wasn't too good. The press used to tell you they were too good. They were playing on better courses. As soon as we got there, we always did well. I didn't go to America, sadly. That was the only regret I have in golf, that I got invited one time once when I was at my peak, just got a free invite and I didn't go, and I should have gone because I might have liked those courses in that era at the time. I was pretty good at that sort of golf. If you presented me a nice course and
perfect lie,
aerial, I didn't need that, but I would have made the most of it. But that's you can't have that back. But I think it was a golden era because golf was rising. Arnold Palmer had started it, but he'd gone and the big three had gone. But there wasn't a gap. We went straight into Norman, Seve, and then, and all the Europe and the rest of the world finally not being intimidated by America. And that lasted a long time. So America were trying to catch up. It's like the Ryder Cup. You didn't get anyone to go to the Ryder Cup until they changed it. Well, so the tours were the same. Now, when they're the same, America didn't like it, so they're trying to get better. Then Seve's jealous of the attention that America's getting when he goes over there, and so there was a love-hate. Well, it was a real hate relationship going on. But he taught Europeans that America wasn't better than them, So then that made it the golden era because you didn't feel like if the Americans came, it was a lopsided tournament, or they were basing the whole thing around an American tournament,
It's funny, that's very true of golf at almost every level, isn't it? Once people realise he just went there and beat them, but I've beaten him.
Yeah.
The person who's never thought they could beat them now understands, well, no, I can beat them because I've beaten him and he beat them.
100%.
We can't move on without talking a bit more about him. You've mentioned the magic name Seve, and to this day, he may be more revered now even than in his playing days in some ways. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't immediately think great things when they think about Seve. What was your experience with him? Did you get to play with him much? Oh,
very good friends.
Really?
We were very close. Everyone will tell you we used to play a lot of practice rounds together and a lot of always at the British Open. We had one practice round.
Really?
Yeah, I had.
That must be special, Vaughan, to have those memories.
Seve was just like he was very intense and quiet off the course. He wasn't. People didn't know, but on the course he was great fun. We used to have good times and everything like that. But he had those political battles at 2 or 3 times in his life that took away 2 or 3 years of his best golf, or not so much his best golf, but the fun he had playing it and that sort of thing. It was more like a prove the point 2 or 3 years and that was sad for me to watch him do that. But we had some great times, some funny things happen. And what the beauty for me was if you play with Seve on Tuesday, you had all these people watching you, your nerves were gone. It was like playing the last round with him. By the time you got there Thursday morning, you say, well, I can beat these blokes. I just play with Seve and he was asking me how to do this shot or what I did to do that, so it changed. I've always encouraged the kids, if they're my kids and they're good kids, I know they're not going to upset anyone. I try and ask them to ask the best players, can they have a practice round? And mostly they do. People say, oh, yeah, but they only play with their mates. They only play with their mates because no one else asks them. Half the time they don't even like the blokes they're playing with.
I'm interested in, you were talking about Seve being a bit different away from the course, and people will tell you the same thing about Lee Trevino in particular. What's the performative element there? Seve in some ways, and I think of Lee Trevino in particular, probably less so Tiger, but Norman I think was like this. There's something about performing in front of a crowd as much as anything else, the showing off element of, look what I can do.
That's what you brought up before. There's so many different scales of personality, and they're the ones that got there. You know, we've had millions of people, hundreds of people come through the tour that were show-offs and layers and tell jokes. And Trino said, you can only tell jokes if you can carry it off with your playing. He said, no good being a funny bloke or an idiot on the tour.
If you can't play.
If you can't play. You can get away with anything if you can't play. So then there was Jack with his sort of personality. Norman was all out front and rip, shit and bust, you know, let's go. And the people loved that. Women loved it, you know. Seve was the cold, you know, he was the assassinator, you know. He's like he would have been the James Bond or the CIA bloke, you know. Seve came to play here, and he was playing at Metropolitan in one of the Australian Opens, and I was staying with Mr. Williams, who was a friend of mine, and down here, and his very best friend that he owns horses with, who my dad was best friends with up the Gold Coast, a bloke called Tommy Pettiona. Now, they were both wealthy men and good businessmen, and they came out to the golf to watch me, which they didn't come to watch very often. I was doing okay. So it's one of my favourite courses, playing nicely at the time, and they come down to watch, and I said, you play with me every weekend if you want to. You know, we go and have social games and betting matches and everything. Don't come watch me. Go and watch Seve. And we went to dinner that night. And this man, he's still alive. He's 90 years old, lives up the Gold Coast still, Tommy Pettiona. And he said to me, I found who I want to come back as if I ever come back. And I said, what's happened? And he said, Lloyd took me over to watch Seve and we played. And he said, he plays golf like I want to. He's a millionaire like I wanted, which he is. He was anyway. And he said every woman in the crowd wants to race him off. So I've died and gone to heaven. And that's the way I always say about Seve. He plays golf like everyone wants to, wild and exciting. He's very wealthy because of that. And every woman loved him. Absolutely. Every woman loved him, wanted to take him home.
Amazing character. Clates always uses the words adored, that the players adored Seve. Is that true? Because the biggest stars of the game aren't always a favourite amongst the other players.
Europeans did. Americans secretly didn't, you know. And there was those nasty Americans. You know, I never played with them, but I got told about them, and when they came to Europe, their reputation preceded them, and I used to look for it, and I'd say, oh yeah, they're right about that, you know, where they were just everything had to be star-spangled. Yeah,
there's an insular thing about it.
America's best at everything, you know, and then Seve didn't fit that, you know, and he didn't own up to it or didn't comply to their ideas, and it was good. But you know, in Europe, they loved him. You know, there was little tiffs every now and again between the big three. Faldo, him, and Langer didn't always see eye to eye. Well, three different countries.
Yeah.
You know, they can't even get on.
Look at Langer now. Langer to this day, what did he shoot? 64 the other day at the age of 65? He's a staggering human being.
He is.
He really is.
Because at certain stages, I was quite close to him as well, because he's almost the same age, and we went through things. He missed the cut for qualifying at Lytham St Anne's the year I did. It was the only time that was the only course I never played at. I missed the qualifying both times. I wished I'd have been exempt to it, because I actually liked the course. I played the course. I was out of form one time and I was unlucky another time. But he missed the cut with me there, and he was staying in a guest house. I was helping him. He couldn't hardly speak English, and Lufthansa used to sponsor him. And he said, I remember he rang up after he missed the cut, and he was a payphone at this boarding.
Coins in the dial.
It was, and he said he rang. I said, ring Lufthansa, you know, ring Heathrow. And he just rang up and he said, Lufthansa. And, you know, they come on. He said, it's Bernhard here, you know, and he said, I want to go home. And they were, Bernhard, we'll get you, you know, and they looked, you know, they could book him a ticket, and that's all it was.
He started very young too, didn't he, turn professional?
Yeah, well, he was, because he'd been playing so long, you know, he's 60, whatever, he's 5 now. Well, he's 5 years behind me, you know, but that was that era. He just joined, and he's a very nice bloke. I'm not a religious person, but I believe his wife has gone very religious, and which is strange. He wasn't like that then. I think it's her, nothing wrong with that, but it's her influence on him. But he's a very nice fellow. And secretly, you know,
sense of humour.
Oh yeah, in a German way. Because I used to say to him, I said, I didn't want to meet you. A couple of times we had a big games, or he'd play very well and do some frightening things towards the end. And I said, I'm glad I didn't meet you in the war. And he used to laugh his head off, you know. As I said, you'd have just driven right over the top of him, you know.
Extraordinary discipline to do what he's doing at his age. I can't imagine most pros for that far into your life?
It wouldn't be much extracurricular activity. You know? He wouldn't be interested in surfing or fishing or doing anything that would affect the golf. Because when you play golf, there's not much you should do outside of it because it's so fragile. You know, anything you do, Kel Nagel, don't cut your fingernails on the week of the tournament.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
See, people don't realise
Wow.
that. I've always told my kids that as well. And they think, oh, you know how when you cut your fingernails?
Yeah,
they always
different.
feel weird.
Yeah.
Well, there's your putting. Don't cut them all the time.
Wow.
See, that's the thing he thought of.
Extraordinary.
I used to play tennis on the Monday because I'm a sports nut, and I used to love just boring as hell, you know, waiting for the next tournament. When we finished Sunday night, I
wanted to stay up Monday.
Monday, I couldn't wait. I played the most amount of tournaments. I just loved golf, but that was all it was. I had to keep playing to make a regular.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't
Is
get
that good
enough
for your
biggies.
game, Vaughan, in hindsight?
Oh, who knows? You know, if
You
you're
won't
having
find that
fun
on the
doing
tour
it.
today, will you? You'll find
No,
nobody who
they're all
finishes
sooks.
Sunday and
They're all
plays on Monday.
sooks.
They're all love that. They're all sooks.
Yeah, they're all sooks. They're all pampered and everything like that. If you had to play, they'd have to play.
It's funny, isn't it? The more you have, the more entitled you feel. Don't you reckon that's
Very
what
much
that's
so.
about?
Very much so. But it just, you know, if I was rich, I'd play more.
Wow.
I'd play every day. You know, and they say, oh, you wouldn't. I said, yeah, I would. You know, I go out and play here and here. You know, my bosses at Crown want to go, and I'll play. I go with the caddies here. I go with my mates here, and when I'm tired, and I feel like not going, but I'll go. My coach used to play with me when he was 80.
Wow.
David, he'd come out and play 9 holes and watch me, and we'd talk about things. And
That's an extraordinary passion, Vaughan. At 70 years of age, there aren't many things that people will go and do if they're a bit tired. I can't think of anything else that could drive people. Clates is the same way. He'll play every day of the week. He'll play. I have walked personally 54 holes in a day. He'll caddy in the morning at the Australian Open. Then he'll go out in the afternoon and follow someone for 18 holes. And then he'll do another 9 with another player that he's interested in having. At the age of 63, he never draws breath. It's extraordinary to be that interested in one activity.
Well, one of my bosses here at Crown, my new bosses, because they've all changed, he watched me do some people here the other day, and he said, I've played with you once now, and he said, I've never seen anyone that gives as much time to those people. They weren't good golfers. You know, they were very, very not good golfers, but I got them better. You know, they said that's the best they've ever played, and it's in by 18 holes. Teach them how to play again, you know, stop them doing the shots, you know, 3 wood with cut and suck over shark-infested waters from 210 yards. You know, it's not going to happen. We're going to go round, you know.
1 in 50, Vaughan. 1 in 50. That's all we want.
Yeah. But you win eventually, you know, and then most of them help them with the short game. They're just so uneducated in the short game. You know, you go down the driving range here now, they're practicing their own bad maze. You know, we stand at the cafe there and, I have to stop looking. I have to watch. I'll go.
Hint to any listeners, if you go down to the MGA and use the short game area, have a lesson first. Otherwise, they're going to be laughing at you at the pro shop.
You know, I just get that frustrated for them. I'll go down and say,
for free.
You got to be careful too. You know, it sounds easy. Everyone says, just go down and help them. Go down. If they're being taught by someone else and they take offence or they think they're doing the right thing or who are you, you know, I've done it 100 times and I've had 92 perfect and 8 bad results. But when the bad results, they leave a lasting effect because it upsets you, you know, because you're going there genuinely. But neither here nor there. No. But I would say 70% of the people I see practicing the short game are practicing the wrong things. Wow. It might even be higher. It's definitely not lower, but it might be higher. But if we go down there now, you know, the irrespective of how many people are on the short game area, everyone will be hitting drivers along the range. Yeah. Drivers, you know, they're only going to use that 14 times. You know?
Good players like you, professional players, tournament players who go on to teach and coach, not that common and really enjoy it. Brad Hughes is one who's found that path, very successful international player. Yourself, having played for him, it's pretty rare. Is it amongst your own peers, touring players? I would imagine most would consider the notion of giving a 20 marker some form of a lesson about as enjoyable as extracting their own teeth without anaesthetic.
Yeah, but I was at the end of it. It's difficult. It's difficult for me to gauge that because half a generation after me are nearly rich enough. You know, the Wayne Grady, Peterson.
So the no choice. You had to come home and start teaching once you're playing. Yes. So you didn't have there was no choice about that.
No choice about it, but you could have gone out of the game. Yeah. I had lots of offers. Mr. Williams.
Open a golf shop.
500 things. Yeah. I wouldn't do that. But retail's too tough, you know, because I was learning at that stage. Well, I was a club pro for a little while and I was I was a great club pro. I can say that in all honesty, where the clubs are not so sympathetic to club pros in certain places. Yeah, absolutely. In certain places. But, I gave my best to my place. We won the pennant 13 times.
Wow.
While I was there, I produced a lady that won 4 Australian Championship Ladies Opens, and I had Darren Morgan, who worked for me, who was runner-up in the Australian Amateur twice. So I had 4 lady winners, 2 runners-up, and 13 pennants.
So a proper golf club producing
little
golfers,
tiny country
contributing to golf and contributing
a
to
little tiny one.
Which one was that? That was a Burley Heads.
It depends on the passion. You can drag your golf club up if you've got the passion for it. The whole competitive system lifts and everything.
But we both know what happens then, Vaughan. The club looks and says, well, look, Vaughan's making a lot of money in the pro shop there. The club could do with that money. Vaughan, you're out. We're going to take it over before you know it.
Not so much out. They take the services away that you're doing, and you go in on a certain amount. And they're being badly run, and you improve it and do it, and it does happen.
There was a real trend of it probably in the 90s and again about 10 years ago.
Oh, it was even before that. My boss was Les Wilson, who, if you look up, he won Australian PGA. He used to have his paintbrushes in the Australian PGA trophy. He used to clean paint. That's it. And he won New South Wales Opens. He won Ampols, and he taught me how to play. When I was apprentice to him at Southport, he taught me how to play rather than teach. He didn't want to teach. He just ran the shop. Very good business. Not a bad businessman, conservative, but good. And people liked him. He was a straight, decent fellow, and the members loved him. So they just bought everything off him in the heyday in a wealthy course. So that was good. But he always said, drive a car worse than your worst members. And he used to say it. And that was in the 70s, early 70s. So I roughly kept that attitude. Don't shove it in their faces, but it still doesn't work. No. He said, in America, if you drive a nice car and you poke it in the pros, they're proud of you.
They'll up your pay.
They're proud of you.
That's right. They'll give you a bonus.
That's our pro. Look at him. We love him. Yeah. Even if you're the best pro in the world, which I really was proud of me, I'd be disappointed if any of my members said, I know I was. And I was a great club pro because I loved it. And they would say, you wouldn't.
Yeah. Funny, isn't it? Culturally, we're so different to America, I think.
Yeah, in that way, definitely. That's what it might be in society. There might never be a more graphic example of what we were like compared to that than in the club pro golf.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might be the most graphic example, I think, because you felt it nearly every day. You might do a field of 300 or 250 people, and you only got to have 2 people that are not take it in, but upset you. And the 228 were fantastic, and they made your day. And the 2 we went home heartbroken that you couldn't do everyone. And David again used to say to me, "You're not going to get them all."
Callaway's new Rogue ST drivers represent a breakthrough in driver performance. The Rogue ST drivers are Callaway's fastest, most stable drivers ever. Callaway's industry-leading innovations, including their tungsten speed cartridge, jailbreak speed frame, and an AI-designed flash face, are engineered for maximum speed with exceptional levels of forgiveness. Think speed, go Rogue with Callaway, the kings of distance. To find out which Rogue ST driver is right for you, visit callawaygolf.com.au.
It's a very tough gig, the club pro gig, isn't it? Because everybody's your boss. From the
get a
members
kick and
to the board to the GM to the only one worse might be the cool supers job, actually.
Well, we were talking about that before.
That's exactly right, because their work is so visible, they can't hide anything that's not going well, whether it's their fault or not.
Well, you're one bad decision away from it, Yeah. But
what does the game lose?
It changes every year as well.
Oh, of course. Well, that's exactly right. Different new bosses, that's right. New members come along.
You never know where it's going to go.
No, that's exactly right.
You might have me having a good run with the committee and cruising along and, invest in things and plan for things, and then the next committee goes...
pulls out from under you. What does the game lose by that no longer sort of being the case? I think it'd be fair to say that there's a lot less of that kind of club pro relationship with a club than what we used to have, and I feel like the game's lost a lot because...
I think it definitely. as you say, you can drag your club up from obscurity, and you create a lot of passion and a lot of pride. They're proud of it when you're doing your penance and your good kids and your good adults and everything like that. When I was there at Burleigh, when I went there as a junior, I was the best player in the club and wasn't allowed to play in the club championship because the senior's supposed to win it. Wow. That was the attitude of junior golf in the old days.
Yeah.
Just there, I used to play in the club pennant and I was the best club in the I had he was a bookmaker at Southport races, and he was a number one pennant player in the Inter Club, which was the one under the was the top. Yeah. There was senior,
major pennant,
proper pennant, Inter Club, and then handicap pennant. And the Inter Club was the guys that couldn't, the single figure blokes that couldn't get into the top team. And because Burleigh wouldn't pick me in the team, I was the best player in the club, and I didn't play senior pennants. So I played number one Inter Club, and I went to the Southport to play him. And Brian Burke was his name. I can remember as if it was yesterday. And he liked a life, he'd have a pipe and he'd like a rum, and he's sitting on the balcony at about 7:30 in the morning at Southport with a rum, and the balcony at Southport looked out over the first tee. The first tee was virtually part of the balcony, and they called me to the tee, and he said, on the tee, Vaughan Somers from Burleigh, Brian Burford's out, and he said, hit off, son. And I said, righto. He said, what about tossing? He said, no, you hit off. As soon as I hit off, he said, now come back and sit here. And he said, we'll have a cup of tea and wait. And I said, what about the game? He said, well, I'm not going out and wasting 18 holes. He said, I know you're going to beat me. He said, and we never went. And he tried to teach the pennant people at Burleigh a lesson.
That's outstanding.
We sat there. He never hit off. And he said, well, that's it. You've won. You can go down and get your ball later. And we sat there, and I had a sandwich, toasted sandwich and a cup of tea I did, and he had his rum. And
fantastic. And that's wonderful.
He said, I'm not going to wait. I'll go out and play this afternoon with my mates and enjoy it. He said, I'm not going to go around with you.
That's a very different path into professional golf for a really good young player to what we see today, isn't it?
Yes.
If Vaughan Somers was born 15 years ago, there'd be interstate teams, dietitians, camps, overseas trips, all sorts of stuff. Is what we have now a better system or just a different system? What are the dangers with the way we do it now?
Well, it's a better system now because they can travel better and they are better. They're better younger. That's all. Let's say that they're better younger. But it's the way it's going to be. So it's no. But it tends to be.
What don't they learn, Vaughan, under that?
Oh, well, life.
Yeah.
They don't learn to have a job and work hard. Yeah. Because Apprentice Pro was a tough job. There was the bad bosses. I'm not saying everything was rosy,
No.
But the bad bosses used to keep you until your third year apprenticeship and then sack you and then get another one for 2.5 years and pay the wages, And we're not talking the dark ages here, but I got $11.70 for 60 hours at Victoria Park when I first started. And I won a scholarship to do industrial chemistry. I loved science in the school, and I had a chemist that was a great mate at golf, and he said, do plastics, it's going to be big.
Didn't Peter Thompson do industrial? Was he industrial chemist?
I can't remember.
I've got a feeling he might have been,
Yeah, well, I didn't know that. That's plastics interesting. But it's $11.70, and you used to have to buy your tax stamps out of that, and I lived away from home.
Wow.
So, it was...
What would that be the equivalent of today?
Who knows? You multiply it every 7 years. It wasn't much. Even then, it wasn't much. Yeah. I was eating into my savings. I used to. I used to buy the balls off the drunks. All the drunks used to sleep at Victoria Park, all the alcos and everything. It was a public course in the middle of the city, and they used to find balls for me, and I'd sell them back to my boss to make a profit. And I worked at the Trots on Saturday night, running the information from the drivers to the bookmakers at the. And I used to get $10 for that. So I used to get $10, double my wages for 6 hours on Saturday night.
That's discipline of a different kind, isn't it? We talked about Langer being disciplined. That's discipline of a different kind.
It was, because that's why a lot of the kids fell out of it. Because, I had no parents there, but my boss was 70 years old. He drank a bottle of scotch every day. No, I never saw him hit a shot.
Wow.
See, Arthur Gazzard, very famous player, won Queensland Open, but he was gone. He was just hiring, taking the money from the public course. But the ones that did get through, I went and practiced every morning.
Yeah.
And if I'm not a disciplinary, I'm an inspirational person. They say I rush into things. Yeah. I excited. I bring everyone with me. Everyone's having a good time. I try and make everyone like me. But I did it. I did have discipline to do that. You know, I thought if I'm going to go for this, because I wanted to play. I didn't want to be a club pro. I never wanted to be a club pro. And the only way you could play was do the apprenticeship. So I thought I'm not going to get fired and I'm going to get through this, you know.
It's a way to sort wheat from chaff, isn't it? Make it hard.
Well, it's a purest form of commercial, paid on performance.
Yeah,
you know, if you
right.
don't do the practice, you weren't going to get there.
No.
We had, you know, nowadays they got assistants and they got assistance tournaments. We had one a year. So you were geared up. We used to practice. We would start.
Was your major?
We used to ring up each other from the Royal Queensland, Mike Ferguson and someone else. And so we'd be talking about it. Oh, it was our major. 36 holes at my course, Victoria Park.
Because under those circumstances, talent's only one important element, isn't it? You've got to have the hard work to do it. So there might have been more naturally talented players than you, but that weren't prepared to do the work to make it the next step.
Without doubt.
And ironically, you can't get to the very top of the game where Tiger is, and you think of him as the shining light. He's the one that's got it all, the talent and the work ethic. A lot of blokes with the talent.
He had a dad that drove him.
He's got to have had it somewhere in him as well.
They make it, but he's got no siblings, so no distractions, and nothing to compare against. And the dad that kept him completely insular and drove him. Interesting. So that's a bit. Tiger's a bit.
He's different, isn't he? He is different.
You pick one that's got 3 or 4, a couple of brothers and sisters, and the ones that don't make it now are sooks anyway. You know, they don't like to travel. You know, don't come. We don't care. We'll find someone who does. Yeah. We'll get the tournament, play it down, send it down in Nong Road again. The winner's going to win. We don't care if you don't come, mate. You're one of 150.
Good course, this Centre down in Nong Road. There's been some big events for him just today. Let's tell some stories from the European Tour of the Glory Days. We often accuse, and I think it's probably fair to say you've called them sooks, the modern tour sort of professional, but it seems to have a lot less characters in professional golf now. Is that just looking through rose-coloured glasses at the past, or were there more? I mean, you told me a story when we organised this interview about some lunatic bloke who played the tour who could barely play golf.
Danny, he did qualify for the US Open, but he was very eccentric. He was about to inherit a lot of 200 or 300 million from his father when he turned 30, and he was just playing, you know, living life until he was 30. But he tried to get on the US tour a couple of times.
He could obviously play a bit. He wasn't a chop.
Oh no, he qualified for the US Open.
Right, yeah.
No, he could, you know, in day out, he'd make cuts and stuff like that, you know. He was a little fella.
A journeyman, we might call him.
He was. But he was well educated because of the rich parents, but he was eccentric. He was mad, you know. He was like, literally, and I told her the thing. We lost him at Geneva Airport one day, and we left without him because we went everywhere looking for him.
Where were you going to?
We were going up to Crancis.
Oh, Crancis, yeah, right.
It was about a 4.5 hour bus trip up the most terrifying road. You go from Geneva and 6,500 feet up to the ski school, which is a golf course in the summer. And anyway, we had to leave because we got the bus there. It's the tournament bus. And anyway, when we got up to the top, he'd been in the luggage compartment underneath, just snoozing on the bags, smoking sort of his choice of agricultural weed, you know. So, and opened the door and the bus driver nearly fainted. He was as high as a kite, you know. And he said, you know, we're here yet, you know, just jumped out like it was the next day tomorrow. And he spent the whole trip in the luggage compartment.
Bizarre.
Yeah. And he was the one that wanted to have, he called us at dinner one night, he called us all together, and he was a friend of Clate's, to be fair. You know, he wasn't my cup of tea because, you know, I sort of avoided smokers on the tour. Right. I just couldn't. Anyway, that be the boy. He said he used to like me because we were sort of out there characters. And he called us there and he said, when I inherit this money, he said, and this is still in the days when 150,000 might have been first prize or total prize money on the US tour sort of thing. It was still not the big money, you know, at that stage. He said, I'm going to inherit a lot of money when I'm 30. And he said, because he was an anti-establishment. And he said, I'm going to put on a tournament. And he said, you and I and Clates are going to pick the exempt players, and all the famous ones, I'm going to throw obscene amount of money at the tournament. So all the famous players who keep us out of tournaments now are not exempt. And he said, we're going to go out and watch them pre-qualify on the Monday. And I thought that way of thinking really appeals to me. To think of that, he said it's going to be an obscene amount of money because I kept saying they won't come. He said they'll come, and he said we're going to go and watch them suffer like we have to.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It was.
It's a delicious idea, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. To think of that is really frighteningly good, actually.
As a spectator, it'd be a fantastic thing to watch. Just flip the tour one year. Take everyone who finished in the top 125.
The reverse grip. The reverse grip.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
No one's ever taught of it before or since. It took him.
And we need some new ideas, don't we? Because the new ideas being thrown around.
He broke his caddy's leg on the follow-through backswing one day. He was posing for a shot that he'd hit through the back of the green in French Open at the race Chantilly, and he was posing in the follow-through finish, looking at it. It bounced one bounce on the green and went in an artificial fish pond at the back of the green. It's all lovey-dovey there. It was the ninth hole, and he held the pose and held the pose. The caddy went away and got the divot, and he's putting the divot back down there, and he didn't see him, and he swung down in anger. This is like 10 minutes almost later. He stayed there in the position and come down. He nearly chopped his bloody leg off, and the caddy loved him so much he got a like he was in a boot, and he had a crutch, and he's caddying for him with a buggy for the next 2 rounds. He did those sort of things, you know.
That's unthinkable on today's any tour, even the PGA Tour of Australasia. You wouldn't see anything like
No, but and then there's a whole bunch of things, you know. The two tour companies, there's 1,000 stories, but the two companies used to fight against each other, and they try and get your business over there. We went to Tunisia one year, which is we only went once or twice. I think it was the worst place in the world, but all the wives wanted to go because they're going to buy gold, and the tour officials wanted to see it the first time. We're in this hotel with this great big, central entrance, and the rooms surround it and went all the way up. And, it wasn't Australian, it wasn't me, and it wasn't Clates, but it might have changed the time for the buses for the plane to go on the Monday morning after the tournament. And through the night, they'd only have a night watchman, and I think they were ready to get the plane at 9:30, be downstairs at 7:30, right. And somehow it mysteriously got changed to 4:30 in the morning, and they've all arrived, the wives and the kids and everything like that. And I walked out of the hotel, out of my room, I could hear this screaming and yelling. They're all saying, "Where's the bus? Get some coffee, food." And they're all sport brats. And we looked out of the hotel down off the balcony, and I said, I think they might have overstepped the mark a bit here. You got the Ken Schofield and everyone's up there for the 4:30 bus. It's not going to come until 8:30. And, yes. They never found out. No.
You know who did it.
I know who did it. Yeah.
We won't ask you on that.
No, I know who did it. But, to this day, I'm going to probably take them to grave because most of the participants are still alive.
Right. Okay. So it's for your own personal safety.
At the time, it was personal safety. And I thought, this bloke, this is nearly serious. It's about as much as you could do. Tony Johnson bet his caddy could he jump over the St. Melian, two dairy farmers hired Jack Nicklaus to build a course. I think they had lots of tournaments there, about 4 or 5 tournaments. I nearly had a Ryder Cup there. I can't remember. And, to keep the cows through the course, it wouldn't hurt it. They dropped the roads. They dug them into a
right, so like a trench.
Yeah, and the cows and tractors could go through. Play over. And he bet his caddy, 20 pounds. Caddy must have said I could get over there. You old blokes got to go down through the styes and the walkway and everything like that. And he said, I'll jump it as well. And I said, Tony, don't you? Of course, he doesn't make it. He gets to the far edge, breaks his ankle on the thing, can't play for weeks.
Right. We've had him on this show too. He never mentioned that story.
Yeah.
He's a terrific character, Tony.
Tony Johnson. Very cool, close mates. He sent me a tweet not so long ago because we played in the Hennessy Cup team together. That was one of my highlights. I got into it. It's like the President's Cup in those days. And it was Europe versus England and Ireland versus the rest of the world. And I three-putted.
What was the format? Was a match play? Or
round robin, match play, match play, stroke play. One from each country played in a 3-ball, and you got points if you won. Yeah, yep. And I three-putted the last at York, the tournament before it, to miss by 28 pounds getting in. It was the biggest disappointment I ever had in my life, And Harold Henning, he's sadly we've lost him now. Very good player. He was off US tour coming to the end of his career from South Africa. He's one of the Hennings. And, he was playing in Europe towards the end of his career. Still very, very good player. Very handsome. very.
We lost him not that long ago.
No. And, he was the last one in. He was the 8th man and thing. He had a heart attack, a stroke, and literally the week of the tournament. And George O'Grady rang me, who was the president. He was under Ken, and then he went above Ken Schofield. He rang and I was out mowing the lawn, the backyard in London. I used to look after our house there. We made a pool and a Aussie barbecue and had the back lawn for chipping and everything. And, he rang and I was, phone and no mobile phones in those days. It was like
attached to the wall.
Yeah. There's a phone call for you. So I run in. George said, "Are you available this week?" And I said, "Oh, what do you got, a clinic or something you want?" Usually they'd, and he said, no, we need your first reserve for the Hennessy Cup. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, Harold Hennings had a stroke. He said, we'd like you to come down. I said, will I come down?
I'm already there.
I said, I'll be there. He said, can you come straight away? I said, I'm on my way. Don't worry about that. I said, I'll be a long time. He said, it'll take you a couple of hours. I said, no, it'll take me 5. I said, I don't want to get killed in a car crash going down there. I'm so excited about it. So I drive down and they fit you for uniforms and everything like that. We had a great time there with that sort of thing. So Tony Johnson was in that team and he sent me a text. He was going through his old photos. It's my proudest photo. I've got it at home. But, he'd gone through and found us where we're all in the team. It was a hell of a team. We had Norman.
I was going to say, who's in there? Yeah.
There was Norman, Bob Charles, Mac O'Grady, Tony Johnson, myself, Jamie Gonzalez. I can just trying to think of Jeff Hawkes, Vicente Fernandez.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a serious team. We ran second. We should have nearly won. Norman was having his first baby and he had a helicopter on the practice fairway waiting to go and we dropped him 3 out of the 4 days. You're allowed to drop 2 of the team.
Right.
2 of the worst 2 scores. We dropped him 3 out of the 4 days on a pitch and putt course. I said to him, you got millionaire. You're a millionaire and I'm a battler. I said, we got like £29,000 for running second or something. And I won the Pro-Am. I'm a super sub, they called me, because they pulled me in at the bench. I won the Pro-Am and I wasn't supposed to win the Pro-Am because we played with the bloke that ran the scoreboard.
Right.
And the boss of Hennessy, because they wanted him to look after him because it was Hennessy's big thing.
Yeah.
And then we're halfway around and I'm flying. I was so excited about being there. And he pulls me over and he said, I don't think we're supposed to win this. I said, bugger you. I said, we're going to the line here.
That's right.
Because it was about 12,000 or something to win the Pro-Am.
We're going to be winning.
And there was all sorts of credibility. It was on TV. Anyway, we had just the best week.
How much of the game at the top level is mental versus physical? You've obviously got to have a certain level of physical proficiency to have.
Nowadays, it's massive. It's against, it just gets, they all train hard enough. They've all had their clubs fitted within an inch of their lives. That's why I laugh about clubs. Manufacturers won't like this, but, they hit 6 and 8 fairways. That's all they're hitting. And they got flex, twist, do this face,
they're the
500
best, they're the best in the world.
As soon as your bum's puckering and you put 2 hands on it, it can go in the bush because nerves. You're only trying to hit too hard for ego, which is, again, personality, or your nerves make you do it. You can tell when it's happening. I'm a real good watcher and I love watching you. You can teach people. Adam Fraser is a pro. He bets on the golf. Well, he can tell he's another good pick. He'll have a computer set up to bet on a certain shot doing something, or if he thinks he's going to choke right all the way in, he'll press a button as soon as he's seen the shot or seen his attitude, and he'll get on before everyone else decides that he's not going to win. And that sort of thing. If you can read it, you can read it,
Ian Triggs told me something very similar. He said as a golf coach, when he watches golf, he doesn't watch like other people. He watches for little things that nobody would ever think.
That's what I do.
How high did he tee that up? What are his mannerisms just before? What did she do just after that putt? That's what. And of course, television makes that hard because as a viewer, you only see the shots. You don't see the in-between. And it's the in-between that tells you how people are actually feeling, isn't it?
Of course it is. And also I used to say to him, the television hides Tiger's finish. You don't realise he's holding his finish till the ball lands. You get your pupil to do that, and they always say I feel like I'm posing. I said, yeah, because I said, well, Tiger, and they said, no, Tiger doesn't do it. I said, how do you know? And they said, I've watched him. I said, when you went and watched Tiger, I said, he hit and you went, there's the ball. You're not watching him.
No, that's right.
Oh, well, yeah, you're right. I watch the ball. I said, as soon as he hits, you look where the ball's going. You're not watching him still. He watches it until the ground. Every good player in the world watches it into the ground. They finish position. And then, so I get them encouraging them. And I said,
It's such a little thing, Vaughan, but it makes so much sense when you say it like.
Yeah, balance. Well, they don't interpret it. They say, "I watch Tiger." They're not watching Tiger. They're watching his ball. And then they don't see him hold it until then. And balance in cricket, in tennis, and balance is everything. The big thing I try and teach them is balance. When you're nervous, swing to hold the balance. That's all you got to think of. Swing to balance, and you're not going to come out bad in the pressure situation. Keep that. And good coaches should encourage it so that even if you get a 20 marker, that absolutely can't be any better, you'll get him better if you get him swinging to balance. Ego lets you go at a speed that your personality can hit at, that doesn't topple you over, doesn't spoil your balance. So, and they say, yeah, but I want to go further than that, or I can hit harder than that. I said, no, you can't hit harder than that and keep your balance. Keep your balance, and that's sad, but that's the golfing gods saying that's who you are. That's as good as you are. You can all do a bit of balance. If they can't really do that, you teach them the little old man swing from Melbourne, where you've got a coat on and a tie, and they just used to roll their hands around it. But you can only go at the speed that lets you do that. If you go 1 mile an hour faster, you're going to get there early or late. So you just, ego gets in the road. Balance.
We overcomplicate and oversimplify golf, don't we, in so many ways?
Well, it's part of the industry.
Yeah.
You've got to have 3 wedges. Why that? Because they're going to sell more wedges.
That's right.
Not because it's going to help you. It confuses you.
If you can't hit the first one, then the other two's not going to do much, is it?
A great tournament would be go back to a basic set tournament.
Half set?
Half set.
7 clubs.
Fantastic.
You know who'd win? Tiger.
Oh, no.
No, I know what you mean.
Some other blokes that come out of the woodwork that are good at that stuff. It's amazing. Tiger might miss he might sook it. I use the word all the time. But he might not like the idea of missing his favourite wedge. Oh, his favourite wedge. Leave me alone. He changes it every 3 weeks because he wears out the lines in it. He practices so hard. But, it might bring a whole new identifier into the game of another section of the community that have got good hands that aren't as good as him at just blasting at 320 metres,
The money's better, but would you rather play in this modern era or when you played? Leaving out the money.
Oh, leaving out the money?
Leaving out the money.
No question in the old era, because
There doesn't look to be a lot of joy at the top of the
No, I even say, they've got these psychologists, don't smile, don't do this. That's bull. It's a game. And when, in the end, you want to see who wins the US Open, but it's only put on for people to watch.
Yeah, that's right.
It's an entertainment.
You're not a doctor.
It's like a play or a rock concert and that sort of thing. You don't want them to come out just, I scream at the TV screen, just smile or bang your putter or just
do something.
Just something, and don't cleanse everything like they do. It's dead old pros these days. That's what I call them. They cleanse everything.
Yeah, well, there's a real.
You're not allowed to say, the course is no good. You're not allowed to say, that the weather's been bad, or you're not allowed to say you don't like playing with that bloke or something. Anything.
And yet we know from other sports, AFL's a prime example here in Australia. They don't play, 8 games a week or something, but it's 24/7 coverage. Yeah. They're not talking about the games. They're talking about all the stuff around it. Golf, that's what golf avoids like the plague deliberately. The tours deliberately avoid it, and I think it's to the detriment of the game in so many ways.
Very, very much so, because it is a show. In the end,
exactly right.
If someone doesn't want to watch it or someone doesn't want to read about it, it won't go on.
No, no, that's exactly right. Yeah, indeed.
Everything, even sadly with the ladies' game when it wasn't, if people didn't want to watch it, you can't sponsor it because, they say who's playing or.
Yeah, there's something interesting about those now. I mean, you're a golfer, so you would know this. Watching good women players play is no less entertaining than watching good men players play.
I quite enjoy it.
It's a phenomenal product.
It's more relevant to my pupils, their game, by miles, because I teach them about not trying to hit 3 irons over shark-infested waters off a tight lie. Anyone over 5 handicap shouldn't have a 3 or 4 iron. 2 and 1, just don't even. Rescues are magnificent things, In the old days, it was an old man's club, and real men don't use rescues. Now that Kepka's got a rescue, Kepka's got a 5-wood.
Shouldn't be allowed to, though, should he? Seriously, shouldn't be allowed to. At that level, you shouldn't be allowed to. You should have to carry along, aren't you? It's an examination. It's a part of the game that used to be examined that is no longer.
Yeah, well, it is a part, but relevant to the people that we're selling them to and teaching them to, and I want to enjoy it. It's good for me to see that they're using them and not feeling like it's a test of manhood, because you can't hit your 3 iron or your 2 iron. That's about one of the only things I'll go against tradition for, because You know, again,
Because you sell golf clubs, you got a vested
no,
interest.
I don't. Well, I'm not in retail anymore, but I want people to get better. I know that my 20 markers are going to go better, much better with rescues than they are with the 4. Yeah. I tell them all the time, I'll get a rescue working down the 9th here, and they'll hit a reasonably good one. Let's say an 85%er for a 20 marker, and I'll say, in as long as God put breath in you never hit a 3-iron like as good as that.
No.
And they won't.
No, that's true, but Brooks Koepka doesn't need that. You can take him out there with a 3-iron and he can hit it for you.
Then we lose our relativity.
Let's be.
I want relativity.
Has the game ever been more disconnected from the top level to the duffer as in this modern era? Because the more clubs have improved, and the hybrid's a prime example, Brooks Koepka gets a lot more benefit out of that hybrid than your 20 marker here.
No, opposite.
No.
He's going to be good with his 3-iron as well, if he was forced to.
But the hybrid, that's right, but the hybrid, he gets a lot more benefit from that hybrid and from the big-headed driver than the 20 marker.
No.
Absolutely he does.
No, he doesn't. In the old days, when we had wooden woods, and we're not going back to this, but this is the one. There's one thing I'll tell you. Nicky Price, a good friend, right? We were real close. So when the metal woods came out, he said, Vaughan, I improved 15 metres in length, and I went from 7th longest on the tour to 58th. Mm-hmm. He said, because it brought the bad players in. The 20 marker with the wood, the metal wood, he mishits it a little bit. He's up like 15 metres behind you now.
I'm well aware of all that.
Well, and I didn't improve. I just hit it nice in the middle, and I'm going down there. They improved 20 lengths. It helped the 20 marker way more than it helped me. Way more than it helped me. I was good with the wooden wood. And I'm good. I'm still good with the metal wood.
I'm sure you're wrong, but I can't figure out.
They were terrible. No, yeah, you're definitely on the wrong track there.
I don't think so.
The bad players got much better with the metal woods and
relative
the technology.
To each other. But,
relative to me. Relative, they were when they mishit their wooden wood, they weren't in the same postcode. When they mishit the wood, now they scunge it and you think, oh, is it that terrible? It's come off the bottom of the plate or high on the toe or something, and you walk down, he's 7 yards behind you. He's a 4'11" Chinese 23 marker, you know, that doesn't hit in the middle of the club, bless his heart, and he's 7 metres behind you. And you couldn't find him with a postcode in the old days.
We might be talking about different things, but I want to move on to a couple of things because I've just noticed how long we've been at this, and it's ridiculous. There's a bunch of stuff I haven't talked about yet that I wanted to. And the first thing I want to ask you about is everybody I know, when you say the name Vaughan Somers, says, wasn't he the bloke that won a house for a hole-in-one and it cost him a fortune?
I didn't cost a fortune. I won a house. It was the biggest prize in world golf because it was before the first prizes in America were worth more.
Start from the beginning. Where was it and what was it?
Tweed on the 17th hole, the first day of the tournament.
What tournament was it?
Risha's Classic, I think it was called. It's a greeny shire, Tweed Heads, no high rise. And they'd finally granted a high rise. It's still the only one there. Yeah. You take off in the plane, and there they are, everywhere. Twin towns. There they are. 2 of them there is now. They had 3, and they only built 2. And because of finally getting it through, it was the biggest, blow up in the whole world. They've obviously offered an apartment to publicise it as a hole-in-one thing, and it was got publicity around. And it was funny.
1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom.
Yeah, 3 bedroom. Oh yeah, beautiful.
Up high, I imagine.
Yeah, Bob Hawke had the one above me.
Nice.
He bought one.
Nice.
So he was the floor above me. I was the 5th floor. He was the 6th floor. And we were walking around on the Tuesday and, reputed 200,000, which when 200,000 was a serious lot of money, 1983. Yeah. And he said, my dad was walking around with my brother was playing the same tournament. Perry, he's a pro in Germany now.
Hickory player, world champion.
Yeah, world champion. Yep.
Lovely bloke too, Perry.
Yeah, mayoress of Cologne. His wife's the mayor of Cologne.
Yeah, right, that's right, yeah.
And Dad was walking with me for a few holes, and we there were signs everywhere about this hole-in-one thing. And I said to you, I swear to you, on my mother's grave, it said, Dad, I said, at my stage of life, I'm going comfy and I'm a good player, life's going to be looking pretty good. If I won that, I said, that'd make my life, thinking that I get a unit, I'll just move in and then all the rest of my money or any investments I've got are just the bonus then. That I could live there. I'm at the Gold Coast, a lovely apartment on a course, 36 hours. And I said to him, he said, I said, that'd end my life, fix it, perfect. And he said, it would, wouldn't it? And I said, yep. First time at the hole, early in the morning, playing with Alan Cooper, who's a pro in Western Australia, and a bloke called Tim Silver, one of the American recruits that came out to get experience. I would say there'd be 200 to 300,000 people said they were on the tee with me at the time.
I've watched Gene Sarrazin hold out too.
Yeah, and there was 6.
Yeah.
There was 6. 2 of them were my very best friends, and 2 of them were a couple that came from New Guinea that I met when I used to play in the Rebel Open, and they were breeders of greyhounds. They called Somers Ace. They call the greyhound after
Outstanding.
it. And he won a lot of races. He was at Harold Park. He killed him. I won a lot of money on him because they used to ring up and say when he, and I tell you, there was 6 people, which was at 9:20 in the morning. So
absolutely.
I hold it and we're like,
what club? How long? How
6
far?
iron. You've just seen it.
No,
I was still down the stairs. Australian blade sledging to 6 iron, and it was just a nice shot. As soon as it took off, we were all joking. You know, you always say, "Oh, this is in." I said, "Because this is the hole." We're saying, "Well, this is our chance, boys." And away I went, and it took off, and it was beautiful. It just landed 10 foot short and dribbled in, and we were going ballistic and everything like that. And then people started to run down from the clubhouse, and they heard it's gone. And a local boy in your own town.
Yeah, that's right.
It was triple then, you know, because
great publicity.
So I played the last, and I've hit it in about 10 feet. And I need it to shoot 68, inconsequential of the story. But my mate was the Qantas airport manager at the time, and he was there because they were helping sponsor. And I missed the putt. I had a good putt and it lipped out. And I go in the clubhouse and we're sitting there having a sandwich afterwards. And he said, "I knew you were going to miss that putt at the last." I said, "How'd you know that?" He said, "Because you hadn't had one since the 16th.
That's a very good line.
It was.
That's a great line.
But that's what it was. And then obviously everyone was celebrating all around the world. I've got the scrapbook at home with Italian paper wrote it up, a Spanish paper wrote it up, the French paper wrote it up, English, millions of English papers wrote it up, and it was quite flattering. And then the tax thing, obviously.
So what happened?
Well, you win it and you get earnings in kind, so you're taxed on it, and that was still in the provisional tax. Most people don't remember provisional tax, but...
So provisional tax, you used to pay your tax in advance,
yes,
didn't you?
So they expected you to have another $200,000 hole-in-one the next year. The largest prize in the whole of golf, so we fought it, and all the people at golf...
When did that become obvious? That there was going to be a tax issue? Not on the Thursday, I assume.
No, yeah, just about.
Oh, really?
Reporters got onto it quick, you know, they're thinking, what's going to happen here? You know, like, the amount of money was just obscene, you know, it was like...
200,000 would be $1 million or $1.5 million in this day and age. So,
more.
A 3-bedroom unit on the Gold Coast. What would you pay for that?
Yeah. So the tax came pretty quick. You know, they had photos of me picking the ball out of the hole and the taxman standing beside the pin with a briefcase and all that sort of stuff in the paper, you know. Cool. And it went on for a few weeks. It got legs. And then, like, Kerry Packer's private, like, tried to, Sir James, Kerry's dad, sent his QC, somebody else's QC. Every QC in Australia tried to fight it for me, and we didn't get it. But, sadly, what would have happened is shortly afterwards, at the time of the thing, John Brown, was the sports minister for Australia, and he made love to his wife on the desk and had to resign. Yeah. Well, I said, it's the most expensive lovemaking you've ever made because it cost me $180,000. He had the bill in for averaging for sportsmen and musicians. So you average your income over 5 years. And he had it in Parliament.
And it hadn't passed yet.
And it hadn't passed, and he resigned. And they took his bill out. If he'd have done that, I'd have just about got it. Well, yeah, so he's played here a couple of times, and I said, mate, what I could have done for you for that, you know. But that was a true story. He had the averaging bill in where musicians having good years and bad years and sports could average it out over 5 years.
It just makes sense.
And then provisional tax had gone the next year. So the year I paid, the provisional went the next year. But we got it back. Yeah, you get it back.
So how much was it? So on a $200,000 unit, how much was the provisional?
180.
Because it was added to whatever else you'd earned that
90,000 tax and 90,000 provisional, and that's it.
Wow. Where'd you come up with the money?
Oh, well, I had to.
You got to scrimp and save and borrow.
We sold it by then. We fought it and sold it, and I rented it while we sold it.
You sold
I slept in it 2 nights.
Right.
I slept in it 2 nights.
Do you go back there often, and do you often look up wistfully at the 5th floor and think that could have been
never land at Gold Coast. It's still my hometown. I never land there without looking at it.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I said to the pilot, "Can you fly once around my unit or something like that?" Whatever you take off a land, you're going to see it. Yeah, but it was interesting because it had never happened before, you know. And it's got
ramifications well beyond golf, hasn't it?
For everything. Yeah. And then the bill with John Brown, and you remember even
absolutely,
the
I remember.
And he had it. It was in Parliament to be enacted on, and it was going to go through.
It
went through. It went through next straight after him. It was heartbreaking.
You wonder why common sense can't just prevail in that situation.
Well, that was the argument a lot of these good people that were trying to help me brought to the case. But
of course, the more you fight it, the more they entrench their position. That's the problem with disputes, isn't it?
Especially when it's not their money.
And now it's public, though, as well.
Yeah.
Had it not happened publicly, you probably would have had a different attitude from the tax department.
There wouldn't have been a person in the world that begrudged me not paying it.
No.
In the world. Honestly.
No, of course.
I was popular. It was a sports thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, and, you get lotteries and everything like that.
Part fluke.
And it was absolutely part
fluke.
Of course it is. It's a one-off. They know, everyone in the world knows you're not going to do it again next year because there's not going to be another one. It was 5 more years before the first prize was worth more than that. In any tournament in the world.
Just extraordinary.
Yeah. But I'm glad it happened to me.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm glad
I imagine you would have quite enjoyed the limelight in a funny way, too.
Very
in that
much.
way. Yeah.
Oh, no question. Anything, it's certainly notoriety and it still is. We're still talking about it.
Exactly.
You've touched the club.
Exactly.
I've got the ball.
Have you?
I've still got the ball.
Fantastic.
Jack Nicklaus Golden Bear B51.
Vaughan, it's been inspirational to talk to you. Fantastic to chat to you. What amazing energy you've got for 70 years old. What a fabulous passion for the game. There are literally a million things I haven't asked you about that I wanted to, but we better wrap it up because I've looked at the time. We've gone on too long. We appreciate you taking the time, mate. Thank you very much.
Bless you and all the golfers. I love it. Every minute of it.
Not hard to see why Vaughan remains one of the game's most popular figures. A big thanks to him for making the time for that chat. And if you're in Melbourne and in the market for some help with your game, I reckon you could do a lot worse than exposing yourself to some of Vaughan's old school wisdom. Now, I hope you've made sure to follow the pod because our next episode is one that you really won't want to miss. John Huggan is at Augusta National for the Masters, and he's going to sit down with Eamon Lynch for a combined Masters preview / Thing About Golf episode with one of the most influential writers of this generation. That's next time on The Thing About Golf.